I was standing in the middle of my sister's rehearsal dinner when my mother handed me an empty envelope and said, "We need your condo keys in here by tomorrow morning. It's Brianna's real wedding gift." The restaurant went quiet. 30 faces turned toward me. My father nodded like this was the most reasonable request in the world. "You've had that place for 3 years now," he said. "Brianna's starting her marriage. She needs stability. You're always saying you might move for work anyway." I looked at my sister. She was smiling, one hand resting on her fiancé's arm, like she'd already mentally redecorated my living room. "It's perfect timing," she said. "Tyler and I were just talking about how we'd never afford something in that building. And you don't even have a boyfriend. So it's not like you're using both bedrooms." The envelope sat in my mother's outstretched hand. Everyone waited. My cousins started to say something about how generous I was. My aunt nodded approvingly, and I realized that in their minds, this was already decided. They weren't asking, they were announcing. I took the envelope. "I'll bring something tomorrow," I said quietly. Then I walked out of that restaurant, got in my car, and made a phone call I'd been preparing 3 years to make. "My name is Lauren. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. 3 years ago, when I was 26, I bought a 2-bedroom condo in a building downtown. I work as a senior financial analyst for a tech company, and I also run a small consulting business on the side, helping people organize their personal finances. When I was younger, I used to think my family would eventually see me, really see me. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance. I got my CFA certification at 24. I paid off my student loans in 2 years. Every milestone, I waited for my parents to say they were proud. Every achievement, I hoped they'd finally look at me the way they looked at Brianna. I used to make excuses for them. They were busy. They were stressed about money. They just expressed love differently. I told myself that family meant showing up, helping out, being patient. So I showed up. I helped out. I was patient. And for 10 years, it never mattered. The condo was supposed to be my line in the sand. The one thing that was completely, legally, undeniably mine. I'd saved for the down payment by working 70-hour weeks. I'd furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing every piece. It was the first place I'd ever lived where nobody could tell me I was being selfish for wanting my own space. Now they wanted to take that too. In my family, there have always been two categories: Brianna, and everyone who exists to support Brianna. My younger sister is 26. She's beautiful, charming, and has never held a job for longer than 8 months. She went to college on my parents' dime. They refinanced the house for her tuition and dropped out junior year to find herself in Colorado. That cost them another $15,000. When she came back, they bought her a car. When she wrecked it, they bought her another one. I paid for my own college. I paid for my own car. When I graduated, my parents gave me a card that said "Congratulations" and a $25 gift certificate to Target. When Brianna graduated high school, they threw her a party for 100 people. My father works in HVAC sales. My mother is a part-time administrative assistant. They're not wealthy people, but every dollar they ever had extra went to Brianna. Dance classes, pageants, spring break trips, a designer dress for prom. They always had a reason. She's the baby. She's more social. She needs these opportunities. What they meant was, she's prettier, she's more likable, and you'll be fine because you're smart enough to take care of yourself. I was the responsible one, the serious one, the one who didn't need help because I never asked for it. And I never asked because I learned early that asking meant being told no while watching Brianna get yes. When I was 16, I saved up $900 working at a grocery store to buy a laptop for school. I kept it in cash in an envelope in my drawer. One day it was gone. Brianna, who was 13, had taken it to buy clothes for a school dance. When I told my parents, my mother said, "She's your sister, family shares." I never got the money back. Brianna wore the clothes once. When I was 22 and still in college, Brianna needed someone to consign a credit card. She promised she'd pay it herself. My parents said it would help her build credit, and I was the only one with a good enough score. I signed. Within 6 months, she'd maxed it out and stopped paying. The creditors came after me. I paid off $3,200 over the next year, ruining my own credit for 3 years, while Brianna told people I was uptight about money. When I was 24 and got my first major promotion, I invited my parents to dinner to celebrate. I'd been working toward this job since I graduated. It meant a 40% salary increase and real career momentum. My mother said they couldn't make it. 2 days later, I saw photos on Facebook of them at Brianna's apartment, helping her paint an accent wall. I stopped expecting them to show up after that, but I didn't stop hoping. That was my mistake. The worst part came 8 months before the wedding, at my grandmother's 75th birthday party. It was at a country club, paid for by my uncle. 50 people, sit-down dinner, speeches. I'd been traveling for work and flew back the same day to be there. I was exhausted, but I came because family was supposed to matter. During dessert, my father stood up to make a toast. He talked about family legacy. He talked about being proud of his daughters. Then he said, "Brianna's getting married next year, and we couldn't be happier. She's found a wonderful man, and they're going to build a beautiful life together." He sat down, that was it. No mention of me. No mention of my career, my condo, the fact that I'd just been featured in a local business journal for my consulting work. My grandmother caught my eye across the table. She looked sad, but she didn't say anything. After dinner, I overheard my mother talking to my aunt in the hallway. "Lauren's doing fine," she said. "She's got her job and her little apartment, but Brianna needs more support right now. Planning a wedding is expensive, and Lauren's always been better at managing on her own." My little apartment, the condo I'd bought with my own money, that I'd worked myself sick to afford, was a little apartment, and Brianna, who'd never paid rent in her life, needed more support. I went home that night and didn't speak to any of them for 2 weeks. When my mother finally called, she never mentioned the party. She asked if I'd started shopping for a bridesmaid dress yet. Something cracked after that party. Not dramatically, not all at once, but sitting in my condo that night, staring at the city, lights through my floor-to-ceiling windows. I realized I'd spent my entire life trying to earn love from people who'd already decided I wasn't worth it. I wasn't the daughter they wanted. I was the daughter they used. And I'd let them, because I kept thinking that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, proved myself enough, they'd finally look at me the way they looked at Brianna. But they never would. Not because I wasn't good enough, because they didn't want to. I stopped calling after that. I responded to texts with 1 or 2 words. When they asked me to help pay for Brianna's bridal shower, I said no. My mother called me selfish. I didn't argue. I just said no again and hung up. For the first time in my life, I stopped performing for them, and I started preparing. I didn't know exactly what I was preparing for. I just knew that eventually, they'd push too far. They'd ask for something I couldn't give and still respect myself. And when that happened, I needed to be ready, not with anger, not with tears, but with power. I called my lawyer. I updated my will. I made sure every asset I owned was in my name only. Documented, protected. I organized my files, property deed, mortgage statements, tax returns, bank accounts, everything. My grandmother was the only one who checked on me during those weeks. "Are you okay, Lauren?" she'd text. I always said yes. She knew I wasn't, but she also knew I needed to figure this out on my own. If they ever came for what was mine, I'd be ready. The wedding planning started in earnest 6 months before the rehearsal dinner. Brianna wanted everything: designer dress, destination, bachelorette party, live band, open bar. My parents were paying, which meant they were drowning. I wasn't invited to most of the planning meetings. I'd get texts, "Just so you know. We picked the flowers. Just so you know. We booked the venue." I was told what to wear, when to show up, and how much the bridesmaid dress would cost. They didn't ask me to contribute money. They knew I'd say no. What they didn't know was that I'd spent those 6 months building something they couldn't touch. My consulting business had grown. I'd taken on 12 clients, all referrals, all people who needed help untangling financial messes or planning for major purchases. I worked nights and weekends, and I was good at it. Good enough that I was making an extra $4,000 a month on top of my salary. I invested most of it: index funds, retirement accounts, a small real estate investment trust. But I kept some liquid in an account my parents didn't know existed. I also hired a real estate lawyer to review my condo paperwork. I wanted to make sure there were no loopholes, nothing that could be contested, no ambiguity about ownership. My lawyer, Michelle, was blunt. If someone tries to claim they have rights to this property, they'd have no case. But family disputes get messy. Document everything. So I did. Every text, every email, every conversation where money came up. I saved it all. The year before the wedding was the hardest I'd ever worked. I got promoted again at my day job, this time to director level. It meant more responsibility, more travel, more visibility. I was managing a team of 8 people and overseeing a portfolio worth $40 million. My consulting business landed a major client, a small business owner who needed help restructuring after a bad partnership. That job alone paid $15,000 over 3 months. She referred me to 2 more clients. I bought a rental property, a small house in a suburb outside Austin, below market value, that needed work. I hired contractors, oversaw the renovation, and got it rented within 2 months. The rental income covered the mortgage plus $500 a month profit. My net worth crossed $500,000. I was 29 years old. I barely had time to sleep. There were weeks when I survived on coffee and 4 hours of rest. I lost weight. I had circles under my eyes. But I wasn't doing it to prove anything to my family anymore. I was doing it because I'd realized something. The only security I'd ever have was what I built myself. During all of this, my parents called me 3 times. Once to ask if I could lend Brianna money for her bachelorette trip. I said no. Once to remind me about a bridesmaid dress fitting. I went. And once to tell me they were worried I worked too much and needed to find balance. I didn't tell them about the promotion. I didn't tell them about the rental property. I didn't tell them I was doing better than I'd ever done. What was the point? They wouldn't have cared. To my family, I was still Lauren, the serious one. Lauren who worked too much. Lauren who didn't have a boyfriend or kids, so her life must be empty. At Brianna's bridal shower, my aunt asked what I'd been up to. I said work was good. She nodded vaguely and turned to ask Brianna about honeymoon plans. At a family dinner 2 months before the wedding, my father said, "You're not getting any younger. Lauren, maybe it's time to think about what really matters." What really mattered, like my career was a hobby, like the financial stability I'd built, was something to be embarrassed about. Brianna posted on Instagram constantly. Pictures of wedding plans, her ring, her fiancé Tyler. Captions about starting our forever and building our dream life. In one post, she mentioned how lucky she was to have such a supportive family. I wasn't tagged. The truth was, I had more money in my retirement account than my parents had in total savings. I owned 2 properties. I had 0 debt. I was financially independent in a way most people my age couldn't imagine. But to them, I was just Lauren. Single, serious, no fun. The responsible one who'd always be fine. They had no idea what I'd built. And I'd stopped trying to tell them. The only person who knew the full picture was Michelle, my lawyer. 2 weeks before the wedding, I called her and said, "I think they're going to ask me for something big." She said, "Are you ready?" I said, "Yes." The crisis came exactly when I expected it. 3 days before the rehearsal dinner, my mother called me crying. The wedding venue had double booked. They'd offered a partial refund, but moving everything to a new location at the last minute would cost an extra $18,000. My parents didn't have it. They'd already maxed out their credit cards on the dress, the catering, the flowers. "We don't know what to do," my mother said. "Brianna's devastated. We can't cancel." "We can't," her voice broke. "Lauren, I know we haven't asked you for much, but could you help us? Just this once. We'll pay you back. Just this once." As if I hadn't been paying my own way my entire life while they poured everything into Brianna. I told her I'd think about it. Then my father called. His tone was different, frustrated, almost angry. "Your sister's wedding is about to fall apart, and you're thinking about it. This is family, Lauren. You step up for family." I said, "I'll let you know." Brianna texted me that night. "I know you and I aren't super close, but this day means everything to me. Please don't let Mom and Dad lose the house over this. Please." The house. They'd refinanced it twice already. Once for Brianna's college, and once for a kitchen renovation she'd insisted they needed. They were barely keeping up with payments. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called Michelle. "They're setting you up," she said. "If you give them that money, they'll never stop asking, and they'll never respect you for it." I said, "I know I'm not giving them anything, but I want them to see what they've done." Michelle was quiet for a moment. "When do you want me there?" 7 p.m. tomorrow, the rehearsal dinner. And Michelle, bring your business cards. The rehearsal dinner was at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. 40 people, both families, the wedding party, close friends. My parents had insisted on hosting it despite everything. They wanted to project success, even while they were falling apart financially. I arrived early. The smell of garlic and wine filled the air. White tablecloths, candlelight, a private room in the back. Expensive. Too expensive for people who couldn't afford their daughter's venue change. When I walked in, my mother grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, desperate. Did you think about what we talked about? We need an answer, Lauren. The venue needs payment by Monday. I said, we'll talk about it tonight. She looked relieved. She thought I was going to say yes. Brianna was holding court at a big table, showing off her nails, laughing with her bridesmaids. Tyler, her fiancé, was a nice enough guy, a little clueless, a little too willing to let Brianna make every decision, but harmless. He worked in sales and made decent money, but not enough to bail out a wedding crisis. I caught his eye once. He looked uncomfortable, like he knew something was wrong, but didn't know how to fix it. My father was drinking bourbon, talking loudly about how proud he was, how Brianna had grown into such an incredible woman, how this wedding was going to be the event of the year. Nobody mentioned me. Dinner started. Speeches began. Tyler's best man told a story about their college days. One of Brianna's bridesmaids cried, talking about their friendship. Then my father stood up. He cleared his throat, glass raised, and started talking about sacrifice, about how he and my mother had given everything to make sure their daughters had good lives, about how family meant putting each other first. And then he said, Lauren's generosity this week has reminded us what family really means. I glanced toward the door. Michelle was standing in the entrance, briefcase in hand, exactly on time. That's when I stood up. I haven't been generous, I said clearly. I haven't agreed to anything. The room went silent. I could hear the air conditioning hum. My father's face drained of color. My mother's hand trembled as it went to her mouth. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. But since we're all here, let's talk about what you actually asked me for. Brianna looked confused. Tyler shifted in his seat. My aunt leaned forward. 3 days ago, my parents asked me to give them $18,000 to save this wedding. Tonight, before dinner, they asked me to hand over my condo keys as Brianna's real wedding gift. Not help with a down payment, not contribute to their housing fund, give her my home. My mother started to say something. I held up my hand. I bought that condo 3 years ago. I saved for 2 years to afford the down payment while working 60-hour weeks. I've paid every mortgage payment on time. It's worth $420,000 now. I opened the folder and held up the deed. This is mine, legally, financially, completely mine. My name is on this deed, nobody else's. Michelle walked over and stood beside me, calm and professional in her navy suit. This is Michelle Torres, my real estate attorney. I said, I asked her to be here tonight because I wanted witnesses when I said this. No, I'm not giving you my condo. I'm not giving you $18,000. I'm not bailing out this wedding. Brianna's face went white. You're really going to ruin my wedding over money. I'm not ruining anything, I said. You planned a wedding you couldn't afford and assumed I'd pay for it. That's not my responsibility. That's yours. My father stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. After everything we've done for you. What? I interrupted. What have you done for me? I paid for my own college. I paid for my own car. I paid off Brianna's credit card debt when she destroyed my credit. I've shown up to every event, every dinner, every crisis, and you've never once asked me how I'm doing. You've only ever asked what I can give you. The room was frozen. Tyler had his arm around Brianna, who was crying now, not sad crying, angry crying. My mother's voice was small. We're your family. No, I said. You're people who share my blood. Family shows up for each other. Family respects boundaries. Family doesn't treat one daughter like a wallet and the other like a princess. Michelle handed me a business card, which I placed on the table in front of my parents. If you want to discuss any financial matters regarding me in the future, contact my attorney. Otherwise, don't ask me for money again. Don't ask me for property. Don't ask me for anything you wouldn't ask from a stranger. I looked at Brianna one last time. I hope you have a beautiful wedding. I really do, but it won't be in my condo, and it won't be on my credit card. Then Michelle and I walked out. Behind us, the room erupted. I heard my mother crying. I heard my father shouting. I heard Brianna yelling something about me being selfish. I didn't look back. The wedding happened. They found a cheaper venue, scaled everything back, and got married on the original date. I wasn't invited. My mother sent me a text the day before. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. I deleted it. That was 8 months ago. I'm still 29, about to turn 30. My consulting business has grown enough that I'm considering leaving my corporate job to do it full time. The rental property cash flows consistently. I'm dating someone I met through work, a kind, stable man who thinks it's impressive that I own property and have career ambitions. My parents haven't called. Brianna sent me a message 2 months ago asking if we could talk. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I will, but not until I'm sure she understands that I'm not a resource to be managed. I'm a person who deserves respect. My grandmother calls me every Sunday. She told me she's proud of me. She said she wishes she'd said something at that birthday party, and she's sorry she didn't. I told her it's okay. Some things you have to do for yourself. She said, "You're braver than I ever was." I still live in my condo. I love it more now than I did before, not because it's worth more money, but because I defended it. I drew a line and didn't let anyone cross it. People think revenge is about hurting the people who hurt you, but real revenge, the kind that lasts, is building a life so strong that nobody can take it from you. It's looking at the people who underestimated you and realizing you don't need their approval anymore. I don't hate my family. I just don't owe them anything. And that, finally, is freedom.